Peter. Such a pleasure to speak with you, especially about the 30th anniversary of Tommy Boy, one of my favorite movies. And this film is just filled with perfect casting. I wanted to ask you about working with Brian Dennehy. He's so charming as Big Tom. How was it seeing him and Chris Farley interact? Because they just are so perfect together.
Oh, thanks. Um, well, we had a few people interested. Charles Durning originally came in and auditioned. Well, not auditioned, but came in to talk about it. But Brian was, you know, going after this part. It was really sort of campaigning for it. He really admired Chris. The Chippendales sketch had just recently come on SNL, and he just thought, my gosh, the bravery of that dude, as a big guy like himself. And so I remember the night that Chris and I we left the writers' room and went to go have dinner with Brian. And that's when I really got to see their chemistry, at the table. And I could tell that Brian was even a little intimidated, being around Chris, because I've seen that with certain older actors when they know they're in the presence of something, new and fresh. And I think it inspired him. He wanted to show that he had, comedic chops. And then of course, Chris was in awe of, Dennehy's, career and resume. And so it was kind of fun. It was almost the same kind of thing that I saw between Jack Nicholson and Sandler.
That's really cool and special. And one thing that really stands out, obviously your first watch, you're just blown away by the humor of this film. But I think upon subsequent rewatches, really getting to see that genuine emotion from Chris is really what sticks out for me. And we see like a more vulnerable side than we usually see from him. How was it getting that from him? Because I feel like we were really robbed of some phenomenal dramatic acting performances he was capable of.
Well, that was the thing that I thought could make this movie a little bit different, was to have, a heart to it, not just be about jokes. And that's where I saw, what you're talking about. He had a tremendous range, and that's the sad part about, his life being cut short, because there were so many, other opportunities dramatically that he could have, taken on. And but yeah, I think what you see there was just, I think, one of the only movies where he really demonstrated, that skill set. And so that's why it's so valuable now to look back on it and watch that.
For my generation, Tommy Boy has always been such a beloved classic. So I was surprised that it wasn't like a giant box office smash when it came out. How was it seeing this film really get reassessed and become such a beloved comedy over the years? Because I was shocked it wasn't like super well received upon release.
Well, it opened number one in theaters. It ended up doing, like, I don't know, 31 million or something on a $15 million budget, but that's not where it was successful. At the 10th anniversary, when they were doing a new DVD, they had film crews going all over the country interviewing the cast, and they put out a bobblehead doll and all this stuff. And I said, "Why so much attention? What's going on?" And they said, "Oh, well, this is a top 10 seller for us." And I said, "But this is 10 years past. It's, premiere. What do you mean top 10?" He goes, "Well, top 10 on home video." I said, "Top 10 for this year?" And there's a no, for Paramount in history. I said, "Wait, you mean like with Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Godfather, that type of," goes, "Yeah." So that's where it really made its impact on VHS back in the day. And so a lot of people don't know that, but that's what they told me.
That's incredible. And I rewatched the film yesterday, and Rob Lowe is just as funny as ever in this film. And he's so great as the villain. I was always wondering why he was uncredited, though. What led to that?
I think that was Rob's choice. I think he came in as a favor. He had just done Wayne's World with Lauren, and we always thought, did Rob just think our movie was going to tank so bad that he wanted to hide? That could be. I wasn't sure it was going to work either. It sort of, became lightning in a bottle, but he certainly owns it now.
As he should. It's an excellent performance, and I wanted to ask you about the two leads because obviously they had a building chemistry, David Spade and Chris Farley, and I could have watched them do a thousand more movies. What an advantage is that when you have people that already have that ability to play off each other without having to put any additional work? How key was that?
It was absolutely essential because we didn't really have a script. We started filming with 66 pages. And so I would literally follow these guys sometimes with a pad and pen because their interactions, which were natural to them, were gold to me. And for example, one day, Chris came out of a wardrobe test and he came out of the wardrobe trailer in his now iconic brown tweed sport coat. And he said to David, he goes, David, does this suit make me look fat? And he said, no, your face does. I went, oh, that's going in. So it would be like that, fat guy in a little coat, you know, stuff that happened, between those two guys, at the offices at Saturday Night Live, either myself or Fred Wolf would, write them down and, or remind them, what was that bit that you did, and because we were so desperate for anything just to fill pages. So the fact that they had built-in chemistry made this movie possible.
You mentioned, the face line, which is so funny. There's a lot of improvisation in this film. What was your favorite improvised line that wind up making it into the movie?
Gosh, there's a lot. It's interesting though, because the hooks scene was literally we know that these big powerful hooks were going to be at the factory going by Chris, and we said, hey, here's an opportunity for Chris to just do improv. We didn't write anything, and that movie almost was cut. That scene was almost cut from the movie because he was dry that day. He didn't have any stuff, because we probably started as usual at 7 a.m. and he's not used to being funny until later. So sometimes improv would get in, sometimes it doesn't. That's sort of the risk with improv, But Spade was great at like pitching the ball to Chris, and Chris would always knock it out of the park. So I think Spade was quite a bit of the engine of that chemistry.